What is up, guys? It's Flash back with some more charts and another video. It's Tuesday, August 12th, about 8:30 a.m. Eastern. I hope everyone is having an awesome summer. I've been out touching grass. I haven't been able to post as often as I'd like, so I apologize, but got a lot of charts to go through, primarily around Bitcoin and MSTR, a lot of ratios to look at. But first, I want to start off with a couple slides just to level set in terms of my perspective and how I'm approaching this market, where instead of thinking about Bitcoin going up in US dollar terms, I think about how this is actually the inverted chart, and I took a picture of it a couple weeks ago. We were at 117.7, but this is actually the price of all goods and services measured in Bitcoin, measured in hard, sound, clean money, measured in the best money, right? So that's my way of saying you don't necessarily need one whole Bitcoin to achieve this power, right? If you just hold your economic time and energy in the better money, prices will fall for you forever because Bitcoin really unlocks the global free market, right? You can't really do this in a debt-based society, a debt-based economy where the Federal Reserve is adding to the money supply, right? So Bitcoin shows this, it unlocks it, and if you hold it for a long enough time period, you're going to see prices just fall for zero for you. So it's pretty powerful, right? So this is the same chart, again, just inverted Bitcoin on a logarithmic scale. I like looking at the regular. It makes me just think like, wow, this is so powerful, and I don't ever look at it this way, right? Also, a couple reminders. When the ISM in the red line here, when that goes above 50, that really is the start of these big parabola moves in Bitcoin, right? Just going back throughout its lifetime, right? And so where we're at today, I think we got a 48 print on the ISM recently, so we're still not above 50, and that's kind of why you see, if you watch my last video, like Bitcoin kind of just going up and to the right in a pretty consistent channel, kind of like the ISM is just kind of floating up and to the right here in a channel. And once it breaks 50, if it breaks 50, if the business cycle allows it for it to break 50, that's when I think we're really going to see some really aggressive price action. And I've been following Raoul Pal and Julian Battel from Real Vision, and they're able to kind of track a lot of this stuff and put their own indicators together to say, hey, here's a forward look at what the ISM will likely be, just based on the dollar, based on liquidity, based on the ISM surveys. So they think that, we do have some, an upwards business cycle to come, right? So that's good for the ISM. I think that's good for Bitcoin and our MSTR investments, not financial advice. And then last but not least, here is Kush Alamzada on X. This is the chart of S&P 500 measured in M2, right? And so this is a big boy chart. This goes back to like the 1970s, 1980s. And he's pointing to this part in the chart in 1987 or 1997, right? Where we broke out of this big accumulation and we had this big massive run of the S&P 500 measured in an M2, right? So this was in 97. Bitcoin didn't exist in this time frame, right? Bitcoin started in 2008. Like, it started right here, right? So it's only lived through this kind of cycle, if you will, this bottom half of the accumulation structure. So I think what he's trying to point out is like we are, I don't think anyone is prepared for what is to come if this is to play out, right? Where risk assets, Bitcoin in particular, you could consider it a risk asset or a non-risk asset, but we could see some price action that would just blow everyone's minds, right? And there's a lot of AI and productivity, and again, that just kind of plays into prices should be falling over time, right? But they're not necessarily allowed to because of the debt, right? So all that to say is I think there's some good price action ahead of us, guys. So let's zoom into today. This is Bitcoin on the daily. We're at 118.6. We had this big domed consolidation, which we've seen before. We have these blue channels, which we want to stay in, and there's a little bit of a lid here on price action. But when you combine this domed consolidation, which we broke out of, I'd love to see us get back into these blue channels and continue our march up to 150, 160K. But this just looks very explosive, and we can even add in the 30-day moving average. We're above the 30-day moving average. We had a slight dip below it. We can add in the daily Ichimoku cloud, which is thick and green, and this is just bullish all day to me, right? So just kind of a little bit of patience, guys, and I think we eventually will go higher. I've also added some anchored VWAPs here to a recent low here end of June, and then the recent low here around August 1. And so just some more clues for supporting price action. So here's Bitcoin with the global M2 and the orange line. This is a 93-day offset. It has that highest 30, 60, 90 average correlation of 44%. We've deviated slightly, but I do think I am expecting us to kind of snap back and find ourselves back up here with the M2. Now, I'm not really sure yet if this is going to be the top, a local top. Again, if the ISM breaks above 50, I think this could run into Q1 or Q2 of 2026. So this could be kind of a local top, a local pullback to maybe shake some people out of the trade. But M2 looks like there's a top here around Saturday, October 4th. And then Leo Hart, who's behind the Rainbow Wave Indicator, he does a lot of work around time-based fib extensions, and he takes into consideration the halving and the amount of blocks that have been mined. And so he has, I think it's October 23rd on when typically that's when Bitcoin will top out for its bull cycle, right? So there's some confluence up here in terms of a potential top. Now, I'm not saying it's going to top, but it's something we should be mindful of, right? We can overlay the gold fractal as well. The gold fractal is pushed forward by about 93 days as well. And I do think we're going to catch up to gold and M2, and then we're going to see what happens, guys. But I'm here to help myself really chart the course and help you guys if I can, right? All right, so here's what I call the command center. And this is what happens on the daily videos that I release to the public, or to the membership rather, every single day around this time, right? So we look at the command center, and this is kind of like this is the distance percentage from the moving average, this blue line, right? It's kind of like an RSI. So we've broken out, we maybe have a little bit of a resistance right above us if I draw maybe a horizontal, but this looks good to make Bitcoin go higher. The white line is the rate of change of Bitcoin. And then you have your ADX indicator right here, which is the white line's very low, which means we're kind of right in front of an explosive move. You have your green line above the red, which is very good. We want to see the buyers in control. And then the orange line and the green line are the rate of changes of the M2 and of gold pushed forward by about 90 days. So the idea is to have maybe a forward-looking indicator to go hand in hand with the overlays to say, okay, what is the energy, what is the momentum of these overlays? What are they telling us, right? And so, gold has really been consolidating for a long time here. We're going to see if it breaks out and continues higher. And then M2 is also consolidating here. We're going to see if it breaks down or breaks up. If it breaks below these zero lines, the red line, that means it's a negative rate of change, which means we can expect negative price action. So just kind of, I don't know if these are going to really tell the future or not. I mean, it goes hand in hand with those overlays. It's just kind of another way of looking at it. But I think it's been helpful so far, right? We're going to know if we want to take chips off the table or if we want to go short, if we want to go long. I can't tell you guys what to do, but I can present to you some information that may or may not influence it, right? So here's Bitcoin measured in gold on the weekly time frame. And so this is just a big boy ratio where we have our 30-week moving average in the yellow. We have our weekly Ichimoku cloud, and we're above both of them, right? We're sloping up and to the right here. I think if we get some good ISM readings and some good healthy business cycle readings, that's when this parabola is really going to start to kick off against gold, Bitcoin against gold. Now, Bitcoin against silver, pretty much the same thing, sloping up and to the right above a 30-week moving average, above the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly. Very healthy price action. Lastly, Bitcoin measured in crude oil futures. I mean, and this is just even more so up and to the right. This is the superior asset class, in my opinion. Hard, sound, clean money. All right, let's get into MSTR. So pre-market, here's the 8-hour. We're sitting at 397.50. Guys, I'm right there with you. We've just gone sideways for so long. It's been very frustrating. I think people are maybe getting shaken out or getting maybe a little bit tired of MSTR. This just kills options premiums, the theta decay. You guys know all that stuff. And so, I think how I would maybe play this if I were to go back in time is to buy some leaps on MSTR or just buy MSTR straight up, which I do. But I've definitely taken on some leverage and kind of just sitting here waiting. I think a lot of people are sitting here waiting. So we'll kind of see how it plays out, but we're still holding these orange bands. I'm still confident we're going to kind of float up here to the right. And when we zoom in again on the daily time frame, We're just below the 30-day moving average. We're kind of squeezed between that and the Ichimoku cloud. It's pretty thin right here. It's turning red. We want to see this get back to a thick green cloud, similar to Bitcoin, right? And we want to continue up in these channels. Now, when we zoom in a little bit more, under the hood indicators, we have our kind of command center of MSTR. Again, I go over this on the daily membership, but just this, where we're at right now looks very similar to where we were in September, October of 2024, right? We had a little bit of a fake out down here. We had a resistance line that we wanted to get above, and then we want to get back above this zero line and make our way to higher price action. Again, this is kind of the energy underneath the hood of MSTR. It's another way of looking at it at price. Rate of change looks pretty coiled, looks pretty explosive. I think it looks like it wants to go higher. And then the ADX, again, the white line is low, which means that's kind of before a bigger move will happen. And then we want to see the green get above the red, which I think it's trying to do. So I think name of the game, which I continue to say, is just patience, guys. Here's MSTR on the weekly. We're above the 30-week moving average. We're above a green weekly cloud. So that's really good. MSTR measured in the US dollar. I see a lot of people kind of comparing price action to where we were back in halfway through 2021, where we were topping out and rolling over. We want to avoid getting under the 30-week moving average. We want to avoid a red and downsloping Ichimoku cloud, right? So, they kind of look similar, but I think, this is healthier price action where we're at today. So definitely worth keeping the eye on, but I think it looks healthy today. And so here's MSTR in the pink line overlaid on Bitcoin with this rainbow wave, with the power law indicator, right? And so this points to, if we just project out November 24th, 2025, Bitcoin at 238K, that more or less would put MSTR around 1500. It's not an exact science here. Just the point of the matter is that MSTR follows Bitcoin. Sometimes it lags it, sometimes it leads it. But ultimately, if we have a longer term time horizon, I think we're going to see the prices that we want to see. We just need to have some patience and probably avoid the hourly candle chart. All right, here's MSTR measured in Bitcoin. And so if you remember, I had these bigger channels up here that they broke down, right? So this is the new kind of look that I'm looking at with MSTR measured in Bitcoin. We're at the top of the range here. We're consolidating. We've really just gone sideways here. Looks like a little bit of a triangle or bull pennant, right? But I don't want to say it looks toppy, but you could make the argument that this looks a little bit toppy. But we're going to see if we can hold these orange channels, and we want to break out above these blue resistance lines and get to some clear skies, get to some fresh air, right? So when we look at it on the daily time frame, MSTR measured in Bitcoin, again, we're below a 30-day moving average. We're below the red Ichimoku cloud, but there is a little bit of space here. There's a little bit of a pocket here. The cloud is thin. So I think there's some space here for MSTR to appreciate against Bitcoin, right? My only concern is really on the weekly time frame. MSTR measured in Bitcoin. This is where this kind of gets a little bit concerning for me, is we have a flat-lining 30-week moving average. The cloud is turned red and it's getting a little bit thicker. We want to see this exit and get up here very quickly. We don't want to spend a lot of time down here, right? Like it did back here. We didn't spend much time down here. Right here, we were still getting through the cloud. So this would be my concern. And what I've thought about is, just to go back to this chart, right? What I've recently thought about is like maybe MSTR is going to potentially underperform in this next run. And then Bitcoin pulls back a little bit and people think the bull market is over. And then maybe we do run into Q1 or Q2 of 2026. And maybe that's when MSTR really outperforms Bitcoin in that final blow off top move. So that's something I'm considering. But we're gonna see it in this chart, right? So we just want to get above on the weekly, we just want to get out of here quick. We want to get it back above the 30-week moving average, back above this Ichimoku cloud. And so this goes hand in hand with what Julius is saying on X. Some ranges have never seen MSTR outperform Bitcoin. Whenever BTC traded between 35 and 55K, MSTR lagged far behind. Between 75 and 100K, it was the opposite. MSTR outperformed. Since BTC moved above 110K, we've entered another phase of underperformance. Nobody knows how long it will last, but it's not the first time and it won't last forever. So if we zoom in here, yes, MSTR has underperformed in the past. Yes, MSTR has outperformed in the past, right? And so we're just in a period of underperformance. And again, we don't know how long it's going to last, but we have the charts to help us guide the way and chart the course. Something I'm doing every single day for the membership. So here's a look under the hood at the MSTR Bitcoin ratio, right? So there's a little bit of a resistance line that we want to get above on this RSI, or on the distance percentage from the moving average. We have our buy zones, or our sell zones, so to speak. Rate of change looks pretty positive. It's trying to break out above the zero line, and the ADX, the green's getting back above the red. So I am hopeful here, guys. This gives me a little bit of hope, especially this look right here. Once the energy releases to the upside, I think that's when MSTR will really outperform Bitcoin. And when you take into consideration, like, Bitcoin makes the majority of its moves. This is something that Kush talks a lot about. Like, Bitcoin makes its aggressive moves like 3 to 5% of the time. The rest of the time, it just goes sideways or down. It tries to shake people out of the trade. And then lastly here for MSTR on the daily, it's, here's Julius's work. We're still in the -2 standard deviation band when we look at the M2. So this points to higher prices, maybe 800 or $1,000, if we get to fair value by October 1. If we follow this M2 indicator has been pretty spot on. So we've just really gone sideways for a long time. I think potentially people are bored or too frustrated to stay in MSTR. I'm going to hold the line here, guys, and keep tracking it for you guys. Then some ratios just for fun. This is MSTR measured in gold. Again, similar look. We want to get above this 30-week moving average and above the weekly Ichimoku cloud. It's kind of just at a decision point right now, right? It looks like it did back here. So we just want to get up and out quickly. MSTR measured in silver. Again, similar story, not too different, but the time to get into MSTR is when it's kind of breaking out of this base on the weekly, retesting the moving average, and we ride it up. So we're going to see if this is a distribution or if this is a reaccumulation. MSTR measured in crude oil, though, this is just up and to the right. So crude oil's been super weak. So just another kind of arrow in our quiver here to see where MSTR might be headed. A couple more. MSTR measured in the S&P 500 looks a little bit healthier than the others. We're above the 30-week, above a green Ichimoku cloud. MSTR measured in the NASDAQ, similar story, right? So this looks pretty good, pretty healthy. A couple more charts here, guys. MSTR measured in MSTY. This is, I think, a little bit of alpha, where I don't see a lot of people doing this ratio, but this is with dividends reinvested in MSTY. So I think once we get above this resistance line, that kind of will mark when that official quick run could be on for MSTR. So this is something I'm also tracking on a daily basis. MSTR measured in Tesla, just kind of a fun chart. We've broken out of this big downtrend, and you kind of have a cup and handle feel to this right here. And then if we look at MSTR measured in Tesla, again, we're above a upsloping 30-week moving average and above the cloud. MSTR measured in NVIDIA, a little bit of a different look, but it looks like an early stage cup, potentially, big accumulation. But we're kind of losing the 30-week. We want to see this bounce back above and get above the cloud too. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Again, if you want to join the daily membership, feel free to do so on YouTube. But other than that, I think all eyes are on Bitcoin here. There's a little bit of a lid on Bitcoin. We're going to see if we make this massive run, and we're going to make a decision up here if we're going to top out as a local top, maybe run into Q1, Q2 of 2026. I will keep tracking this for you guys, probably on a weekly basis. Drop me a like if you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.